Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and welcome to the EGU Podcast for awakening and emerging entrepreneurs. We bring you global experts weekly supporting unparalleled success for you in mindset, business, energy, and all things spiritual to help you thrive. And today I am taking a dive back into the past with a dear friend and colleague of mine. On October the 7th, 2016, we recorded a very special interview podcast for inspired intuition for faster results in life and business. And I'm so excited to have you back in my virtual studio. Welcome to the show, Vanessa Petronelli.
Oh, thank you, Michelle. So good to be back here. I can't believe it's been a year. I mean, wow. Where did the last year go? It felt like yesterday, and it also went by so quickly. It's incredible. But thank you. Thank you for having me back, and thank you for that really lovely, warm intro.
Oh, you're so very welcome. I can't believe that it's taken us a full hour of chatting to hit the record button.
I know. So funny.
I'm sure we haven't run out of wisdom just yet.
No, I'm sure we can keep going. I'm sure we can, especially in the name of service. I know that we can keep going, you and I. So
absolutely, for sure. So, guys and girls, I would strongly invite you to put your pause button on to everything else but us right now. Vanessa has had an incredible journey over the last 12 months, and one of her posts in particular stood out to me and called me to have her share this even deeper with you. So what I would love to invite Vanessa to share with us is her year. I know it's been massive. She mentioned that the particular day marked the final quarter of 2017, a very intense year, a very challenging year, and a year upon which she grieved parts of herself, her business, and relationships over and over again, and grew closer to her God than ever before. We have had the most beautiful conversation earlier about how important it is to find your heart. I call it a heart print. As unique as your fingerprint is to the world, your purpose, your calling, your God spark is so vital to dig in and find. So we'd like to take you on a journey of exploration today.
I'm so honored. Yes. I love the heart print. I love God spark. Yes. And I am really deeply honored that post that I wrote moved you to also invite me to come back and talk about this. And, it's always in my intention whenever I do any interviews or podcasts or any live, Facebook chats, that my story or what I share can be valuable for other people. And I know that I'm not alone in saying that this has been an intense year, and a year of a lot of significant change and transformation and upheaval. Across the board for a lot of people. I'm safe to say I'm pretty certain on that.
I'm pretty sure you are. So what are some of the things that people have been experiencing in your professional opinion, Vanessa?
Yeah, what I've been seeing across the board is a year of really most of my work is always coming back to alignment. And we've talked a lot about this, and I'm seeing a lot of people being forced into alignment. Meaning that a lot of the incongruencies, the parts of ourselves, the things that are not operating in full integrity, the things we're not being fully responsible for, self-responsibility and integrity around are coming to the surface very quickly. And, I think for a long time, the energies that were on the planet, the consciousness that humanity has been allowing a lot of those misaligned parts of ourselves that are not in alignment to our God spark, as you call it, our heart prints, the God self, the divine within us, our higher self soul, whatever resonates for those of you listening. It's like it's coming up very quickly and very powerfully and in a very obvious way. And I've been seeing that across the board for clients. I've seen it for friends, and it's a time of truth and letting go, like really being honest and letting go of those parts of ourselves and our lives and the people and situations and scenarios where we're not in integrity and where we're not being fully responsible. And some of the opportunities have been very harsh and have been, very sudden and abrupt endings. And others have been, gradual. And there's just this like continuous, I would say mirror that's being held up over and over again in different ways, in a variety of ways, in certain areas of our life or in all areas of our life, where we're seeing, there's that thing again that I noticed happening over here. Now it's kind of jumped over there. Okay. And those of us who are on this path of spiritual mastery and self-awareness, are noticing these patterns coming up. So, I feel like this is the year that a lot of us are being thrust into coming into alignment with our highest potentiality as a human being and really getting aligned to the God self within us and what we're really here to do, and to stop wasting time not doing it, and talking about it. It's like, this is the year where I really feel the rubber has met the road, and we're getting in the mud, and getting our heels digging in there. So, I don't know if you're seeing this too in your life and in your community, but I've seen it a lot this year in mine.
Yeah. Look, it's showing up in a lot of people's lives as struggles, as hardships, and I have a giggle because the other day someone said, I feel like people are just throwing shit against the wall and expecting it's going to stick. It's just not. It just made me laugh because, we get to the stage, and I know you have, Vanessa, and I know your clients have, that you can't figure this out in your head. We haven't been here before. Spiritually, emotionally, and intellectually, we have not been down this path before. The answers are not in our memory bank. They're not hidden in the reticular activating system. They are not there to call on. So it's time to absolutely find a whole new path forward.
Absolutely. Everything you just said it's been sitting in my consciousness for the last few weeks. And I wrote a post, I think it was late last week. It was a channeled message, and it was speaking about that. Like, we are entering into uncharted territory, and there's a consciousness shift that's happening. There's a lot more light pouring into the planet. We've got solar flares. We've got all kinds of, I would say, like a contrast right now. And I'm seeing this on the collective level, and I'm seeing it on an individual level, where a lot of the dark, shadowy pieces in humanity's collective and in our own individual lives are coming up as more light's pouring in. So, we are in a time right now that is truly magnificent and wondrous and enchanting. And it's also really, really hard at times. And it's really like rocking us, and we're all in this together. But, I think, and I've talked about this with other, colleagues and friends on this path, that I think a lot of spiritual, quote unquote, people, in 2012 and 2011, even 2013, 14, after the shift sort of started to happen, in December of 2012, we're expecting that all of a sudden we'd be living in a utopia. And the truth is, it's kind of got to almost get worse before it gets better. And it's like, you go to get a prescription, the doctors often say, well, you might feel worse before you get better. We have to see the contrast and the polarity coming up right now, because that has been a part of our experience for thousands of years as human beings.
That's right.
Polarity, the duality, and it has served us, but it's like, we're complete with this. And in order for us to move through it, we kind of have to like bring everything up to the surface and release it so that we can start fresh, we can start new. And some of us are already bridging. We're bridge walkers, we're bridging the old world, the old paradigm, and we're creating new ones daily. Like, we're creating it with every thought, with with every action, with every, word we speak, with our feelings, with our energy, all of that. And, we're still a part of this world, and we're seeing where there's still some of the work, not some of the work, a lot of work that needs to be done. And I really feel like we're at that point right now where we're seeing massive change happen, and it's designed for us. You even said earlier, like everything's happening for us. I'm a firm believer in that. What's happening is designed for our awakening, and for us to start saying enough is enough with these patterns in my life. Enough is enough with waiting for leaders and quote unquote leaders, right? And people in charge on the planet to fix things. It's like we've got to start taking responsibility and really creating change all together and also individually. And I've always been a firm believer that it starts individually. It starts in our own personal level first, and then we start to create greater impact in the world. So, I'm with you on that. I'm in full agreement. I'm seeing that happen every day. And you pick up the headlines on the news, you see it, and you pick up the phone and you hear it with a friend or a client or a colleague, just all the change and the consciousness shift that's happening right now.
Well, it's coming from the very belly of our mother. It's all coming up, all of the darkness, the densities, the ugliness, it's all coming up to the light. And it's up to each of us to add our light to the light of the world so that we see that change. It's quite possible it could take a couple of decades to get to where we're all living in that beautiful space that I think many of us know exists. And for many of us, it's still, you wouldn't be listening to this if you're not in that space where you're a forerunner and a thought leader and ready to help us move and shape the world. So welcome.
Yes, welcome. Thank you for being here, and thank you for doing the work and relentlessly showing up. My goodness, we're all in this together. And we've come here, I think, in our DNA and in our souls, it's been activated. Like, so many of us have remembered, this is why I decided to come here at this point in time. And, this is where, we have to put the money where the mouth is, or where our money where our mouth is, so to speak.
Exactly right. Now, just to help people sink a little deeper into that, Vanessa, you mentioned it's about learning to be with all parts of yourself.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Dive into that, shall we? Because I think this is the key.
Oh, Michelle, is this the key? This is juicy. I'm like rubbing my hands. Yes. So much energy pours through me in these conversations because I just light completely up. I mean, this is just being with all there is. So I'll give you a little backstory. In my early 20s, I started to I'm 34. So I've been on the personal development, spiritual path since I was about 19 years old, 20 years old. So when I started to get into it, I was in the entertainment industry, and I was modeling and acting, singing, all of that. And I really didn't understand what it meant to love yourself. Like I read Louise Hay, God Rest Your Soul, Dear Teacher. She was one of my first teachers. I was reading Norman Vincent Peale's work, Rhonda Byrne, all of it. And so I dove into this work, but just on an intellectual level, I understood what it meant to love myself, but on an embodiment level, I didn't get it. And I didn't understand it for years, actually.
Yeah.
And it's coming to the full circle of what we're talking about being with all there is. And so when I started to go really deep into my own healing work around 23, 24 and onwards, at one point in my journey, I was in a relationship with a man I was dating at the time, and there was a lot of alcoholic tendencies that were happening in his life. And when our relationship ended, I discovered Debbie Ford's work, another wonderful teacher of mine, God rest her soul too, and had picked up Dark Side of the Light Chasers. And I was, even at the time, I was doing a lot of this work and teaching and healing and coaching, all of that. And there was something really profound about having that experience with this particular man at that time in my life, because I really knew that I was the creator of my reality. And, I was wondering, like, what in me was bringing a man who was in such a level of self-destruction and self-hatred into my world, you know.
Sorry, can I just say, how many times did you bring the same man into your world and existence?
Oh gosh,
just a different name.
Just a different name, and maybe not the same issues, but like a lot of the similar kind of self-destructive tendencies, or just like not in an embodiment of who he was. And there wasn't a judgment to him, but it was more of an exploration. And it was like me saying, okay, I'm responsible for who I choose to be with and spend my time with in my life. And I need to look at this here. So this book came into my life, and there was this exercise that I did in the Dark Side of the Light Chasers. If you've never read that, guys, you've got to pick up Debbie Ford's work. I mean, 100% dive into shadow work. It's essential, and it's exactly what's happening on the planet right now. And so I picked up this book and I did this exercise, and I remember sitting in front of the mirror in my bedroom, and I had a Kleenex box, candles all lit, and I was writing out all the qualities about him and about myself that were parallel, and seeing these parts of myself like just coming to like a bucket of like stuff, like sludge, coming out, and bawling my eyes out, and just feeling like sick to my stomach, like nauseated, like, oh my God, these things, like, I'm not maybe showing the same, it's not showing up the same way in my world of how I've handled things, but seeing the tendencies and seeing the parts of our personality and the unconscious parts that I was sharing, that we were passing back and forth, and, you know, and other parts of myself that he was reflecting in our relationship that I wasn't able to see, because I was like, oh, well, we need to heal you. There's something going on here that you need to work on, but kind of not seeing my responsibility in it, and doing this shadow work that I took myself through. I mean, it was like a 2-hour process, you know, and I did it for other people in my life too. And it was hard. It was really hard to face those parts of myself, and the dark, shadowy parts of myself that I wasn't willing to go into, and to see them from a different perspective. So I took myself through the recognition of those parts of myself. And then I sat in those parts of myself that I was so afraid of seeing and knowing and facing. And then I saw the gifts. I was like, extracting the gifts that these parts of my being that I had judged in this other human being, and I was judging in myself, and finally learning to love and accept, and to see why those parts of myself were serving me the way they were. And I got it. It's this light bulb went off. Oprah calls it those aha moments. It was like, oh my God, this is what it means to really truly love ourselves. So I had that part of my journey, and then fast forward, one of my teachers that I've been working with for a couple of years, shout out to wonderful Lisa Berkovitz, love her dearly, good friend, teacher, colleague. We were doing a lot of soul alignment work together, and because I'm always investing in myself, I always find ways and teachers that I really feel aligned and connected with. I always make that a priority, because there's always stuff to learn about ourselves. We started to do more work around, being with all there is, and I started to, notice again, triggers would come up, and some of the shadow work I had done before wasn't quite landing as powerfully. And then I started to do this work, that I was learning with her, and I was adopting in my own practice, and bringing these worlds together, and learning to sit with and to be with the most uncomfortable aspects of our humanity. Oh. And it was painful at times, but the resistance of not being willing to sit in the uncomfortable parts, because there was a fear, if I sit with this, or I'm able to be in this discomfort, maybe I might feel like this forever, because that's what my mind would say, right?
Yeah.
What I quickly learned is that when I actually learned how to be with it without judgment, without story, without resistance, without worry or fear, when I actually just allowed myself to experience the emotions, to experience that part of myself that was activated, that there's just this level of meeting these misunderstood parts of myself in a way that I had never met before. And oftentimes when I met it without the story, without the judgment, and I could just be with it, with all of it, with what the intensity of it, with the pain of it, that the minute I met it without my mind getting engaged, it released and dissolved into nothingness. And I started to do this and practice it, because before I teach anything to any of my clients, I take myself through the process, right? And
Yeah, it's important.
And so I had these experiences, and then I started to see, like, you know, the core foundation to spiritual work, personal development work, is really the understanding that we are dualistic. We have duality, and there is a spectrum of emotions that we're here to experience. And we're going to experience a variety of those emotions and those feelings and those belief systems, and all at once sometimes in one day. We have a variety. And sometimes there's just a few that come up, but that we cannot deny ourselves the shadow elements of our humanity. We cannot turn a blind eye anymore and say it doesn't exist. We can't say I'm willing to be with these parts of myself, but not with this, because the more we deny this and we turn away from it, what we resist, we know, always persists, and it finds a way of coming up. And often the more we are, you know, turning away from it, the more intense it becomes when it comes back up again, until we are willing to face it. And that's what we're going through right now. And that's what I've gone through. And this is work, you know, this is mastery level work, you know, and I've talked about this with Lisa over the years. And this is mastery in that sense, where we learn to be with all parts of ourselves, because we are trained as a society and as a culture to distract, to avoid, to numb, to pretend. And we have various copious ways that we call it addictions, you know, various amount of addictions, to not be aware of those parts of ourselves because it's painful. And a lot of those parts are traumas, you know, that we haven't worked with or we haven't dealt with, you know, and they can be little traumas which end up creating a big trauma, or it could be a big traumas in our lives that we're not willing to look at, and just various parts of our being and emotions that are just not comfortable. So there's, you know, levels in this work, and being with all there is something that I feel like as spiritual beings having this human experience, we cannot bypass it. And the more we bypass it, the more we see it happening in our world, the way it's unfolding with intensity.
Absolutely. And if we don't acknowledge it, recognize it, and love it away, it does just keep coming back and biting us until we're forced to, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yes.
So we can't fight this. This is why we're here.
Exactly. And I feel like this chunk, the scope of this type of work, yes, it's lifelong, you know, we're going to constantly be implementing it, but I'm really seeing, like, my clients, and just even in my own work, like, we really need to spend the time focusing on this. Like, we can't really move to the next level. Like, we always want to move to the next level, transcend it, but we really need to integrate and include, like, what's happening in this. And this is the work. For most people, this is going to take several years of, like, really fundamentally learning to be with all there is and to work through the dark shadow and even the light shadow elements of our personalities, you know. And there's a difference. Light shadow is seeing in other people things that you love or honor or recognize, and are like, wow, like, you're just this amazing, beautiful, bright light. And then saying, well, I'm not like that. Like, I want to be like that, but I don't see it in myself. And then the dark shadow is seeing the disowned parts of yourself where, you know, oh, that person is horrific, and she's such a, you know, a biatch, and this and that. And then not seeing how, like, you might have some of those tendencies, so we can project it onto other people, but we're having a hard time seeing it in ourselves, or like, darker aspects of our personality, you know, like being unwilling to go there.
And they're all illusions.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
The truth is we are perfect.
Yes.
We are all perfect. We all come into the world the same way, from the same place. So it's you've mentioned here the spiritual path is a path that trains you to be a warrior in your human experience. That is so beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Well, I really feel that, because, you know, as you just said, like, we are perfect, and we are all God having a human experience, like a chip off the old block, so to speak. You know,
I like that. It's true.
Yeah, it's true. And we go through the polarity and the duality that we've been experiencing to remember that. And so, you know, that we're shedding just the personality, the small self, the illusory self that we've given our power and everything over to thinking that that is who we are. And so this path, it has a way of like refining and chipping away at all of this. Like it takes a warrior to be able to show up with love. And I believe integrity and self-responsibility and alignment, and like be able to bridge the world between heaven and earth, and be able to also be in this world. Like there's a warrior that has to step forward, a master that has to step forward within each of us, especially light workers and empaths and, sensitive beings, sensitive souls. Like it's so much easier to be in the ether, so to speak, and out of the body. And it's so difficult to be in the body when we're so sensitive to everything that's going around inside of us and around us. And so it takes a master. There's like a warrior that gets etched out of our beings and ourselves to be able to walk this path, knowing that it's an illusion. Like, as Jesus said, to be in this world, but not be of it, right?
Yes,
to cloak ourselves in those moments, but also be in this world, like having that human experience, to be grounded, to be embodied, and walk these worlds, because that's ultimately what we're here to do. And that takes work, it takes a warrior within us, which I believe we all have. We just have to discover that, to be able to allow that part of our being, that archetype, to step forward.
Yeah. And it's the remembering of all that we forgot that is our divinity. That is so, so beautiful. And look, I've got here from you, Vanessa, you will experience more joy, more connection, more abundance, more love, success and fulfillment than you have ever before. But you can't have one without the other, because it's a package deal.
It is. It so is. The highs are so high when we're connected to the divinity, when we remember who we are. And then, and then it's like almost like the lows can be low. We can feel them a little more deeply. But, I really believe in one of my channeling sessions for group in July. I mean, this has been so profound. I'm still to this day, like just these like nuggets are just opening up, these seeds that were planted from just doing the channeling session for this group. And, the guidance was coming through and was talking about love and our misunderstandings of love. Like this is all love right now. It's just variations of what love is. Love isn't just all the good stuff. Love is also found in the lessons and in the remembering and in the duality. And, yes, we've been experiencing it this way for a long time. And, as we move forward, we don't have to experience it in this way. But, underneath it all, there's love that's woven through all of these experiences, the highs and the lows. And it's teaching us love in a variety of ways. I mean, we can't almost sometimes remember love to love ourselves if we haven't gone through a period sometimes of being in a duality of not knowing what self-love is. Like there's like a weight to that. I'm trying to look for the word to best describe it, but there's a juiciness. There's a flavor of so much growth and evolution that comes from the highs and the lows. And it's like, you can't have one without the other. It's like, it is a package deal. To experience joy and to know joy, we've had to have polarity. And instead of judging it and saying, well, that's not love, that's it. Because there's a lot of shame around fear in our community and in this work. Oh, get rid of fear. It's bullshit and you don't need it and all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, but what if we were to examine fear from a bit different perspective and look at it? Yeah, it might be holding me back right now, but there's also like, without fear, it might not give me the fire that I need to go and live my life on purpose. Without this fear, I may not know that there's something on the other side of this that is exactly what my soul has been desiring me to experience. And so I always say, like, can we use fear, and instead of judging it as it not being love or the opposite of love, like, can we see it as love, but in a very, way, in a different way? And can we utilize that fear in a really healthy way to create something that feels so much more pleasurable and loving in our being, and then it does feel more natural and does feel so much more expansive, because it's from contraction that we also experience expansion. You know, it's all enmeshed in this greater definition and perception of love.
Yeah, I'd love to offer a visual for our audience in that. If you can imagine an arrow, a bow and arrow, and as you're pulling back on the bow with your arrow, you pull back so far, and it's that holding, that waiting, that's where the magic is. And if you can wait and hold there long enough, non-judgmentally, and standing in your truth, when you set fly of that arrow, there's no boundaries, no limits. You're free. Yeah. It's beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. It's a beautiful analogy.
Wow. Thank you, Vanessa. My goodness, we have spent the most glorious time together, and I would just love to remind our beautiful listeners that have connected in with us. This is a journey. Yeah. It will come with the highs and the lows, all disguised as love. It is much easier to do this with the support of a community and people around you. It is very, very hard to do it alone, and we're not designed that way.
No.
So please jump into the beautiful heartbeat that I've created called Entrepreneurs Globally Unite, which is a Facebook group of nearly 6,000 awakening and emerging entrepreneurs. And you can be there as much or as little as you like, come and go as you please. But there's always someone there that can lift you and inspire you, and also support and nourish you and nurture you if you need them to. Vanessa, how can people connect with you, Master Coach?
Thank you. Yeah, you know, I'm really easy to connect with. Facebook is one of the easiest ways to get in touch with me. You know, you can follow my work. I have a personal page and a business page, public figure page, whatever they call it these days on Facebook.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
I know everything's changing all the time. But you can follow me there. I'm also on Instagram. You know, if you just type in Vanessa Petronelli on both, I'm there. My website finally is getting all redone. It's only been like a year. So, you know, if you want to stay in touch with me and you want to find out more about my Evenings with Me, which is my channeling sessions that I do with global leaders, visionaries, change makers, and influencers who are on the cutting edge of consciousness and are wanting cutting edge guidance and support. Yeah, you can sign up for my newsletter, and I'm happy to tell you more about that, and also some versions that I do if you're wanting to go a little deeper. You know, and I just want to second that. Michelle has created a beautiful community on Facebook. I'm invited and I'm added to a lot of groups a lot. And I will tell you this, you know, I remove myself from a lot of them. And Michelle has done such a beautiful way of like really creating a community and curating this group in such a beautiful way. There's a lot of amazing individuals. So if you're not in there, make sure you join it. And I want to also just second that, like, we can't do this alone. We need to come together as a global community, as a tribe, and support one another in whatever way we can, whatever way feels aligned and true, and to be there for one another. You know, this is not an easy path. The spiritual path is chaotic. You know, running a spiritual conscious business is chaotic too. And, you know, we've got to be there for each other because this is what it's all about. It's about really coming together. And so I just want to second that and just support that in that. And so, you know, Michelle and I are here for you, you know, whether it's a quick conversation or it's deeper work, you know, it's like, reach out. I want to hear from you. And I'm sure I can speak for you in this. We want to hear from you. You know?
We do.
And be there for one another.
We do. That's for sure. It's, I certainly wouldn't be here where I am if it hadn't been for the people that had supported me along the way. And that was from when I was broke and broken right through today. And I say it unequivocally, if I can take my life from where it was to where it is now, you can too. So please reach out, find us in our group, Entrepreneurs Globally Unite. Google Vanessa Petronelli, dear friend, beautiful colleague. And Vanessa, what a joy to spend this beautiful time with you. Thank you for what you bring to the table every time you show up.
Thank you. I really received that with a lot of deep appreciation and love. And thank you for seeing me. I feel so seen and understood and met by you too, Michelle. And thank you so much for stepping in and showing up for everyone in your community and in the world, and doing the work that you do, and doing this podcast, and inviting people into this conversation. I can imagine how grateful so many people are all over the world for the work that you're doing. So the feeling is mutual, and thank you for all of the beautiful reflections. I deeply appreciate it. And thank you for having me. It's always a joy being here with you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please leave your comments and your thoughts below for us so that we can answer any and all questions that you have. And for now, beautiful EGU followers and subscribers, it is goodbye. Good luck and have a beautiful day, and shine bright, superstar, because that is why you're here. Thank you, Vanessa. Goodbye, everybody. We'll see you next week. Bye, darling.
Everyone. Bye.